You're good to go.
Rick is muted.
Okay, he can do it.
I just unmuted my, thanks, Cheryl. Can everybody hear me okay?
Good. Yes.
Great. So I want to welcome everybody to our latest lay leadership training seminar. Every 3 months, we provide you a seminar on different topics. Today's seminar will focus on solicitation, and as my friend and colleague Cheryl Buchholz calls it, peer-to-peer fundraising. Before we start, first of all, we are recording this, as we do with all of our lay leadership training seminars. And if you miss some of this, you want to rewatch it. If you want to forward a link to your colleagues in your local community, every Friday in the weekly campaign update, if you scroll down, you will see a link and a catalog for all of the previous lay leadership training seminars. Before we start, I just want to make a few announcements. The next lay leadership training seminar will be on Wednesday, May 15th, and it will focus on the anatomy of an effective board meeting, which I know is an interesting topic to many of us in local communities. The national conference, September 13th, if you have not registered, please go online, www.jnf.org/NC to register for the national conference. And I know Bernice Friedman from Las Vegas. Bernice, unmute yourself. You want to give a plug for the upcoming Major Donor Weekend in Las Vegas taking place a week from this Friday.
Yes, absolutely. We've got over 200 people already signed up. The events will be taking place at the Four Seasons Hotel at the southern end of the Strip in Las Vegas. And anyone who is here we have Shabbat on the Strip. Everyone is going to see the wonderful Cirque du Soleil program, Mystère. We have dinner Sunday evening at the Mob Museum. And it's just going to be a lovely, lovely weekend. So if you're not already signed up and you are a major donor, please be sure to do so. And we hope to see you all there. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice. So Cheryl Buchholz and I met each other back in 2008 on a JNF mission. And from that point on, Cheryl has been all in with JNF. And more than that, Cheryl and I have found over the years that we are very much like-minded about how to approach solicitation. And that is that it starts with us as individuals. And how do we communicate about this organization that we give so much of our time, energy, and financial resources to? I would imagine that most of you who are on this Zoom call have had the experience that you're talking with friends and family, business associates, and they say, yeah, JNF, I love it. You're the tree people. And we all have that experience, which is fascinating to me on the one hand. It's also exciting to me. And I'll tell you why. It's fascinating that here's JNF. Let's say we're now 21 years into the redevelopment of this organization. In the era of Ronald Lauder as our national president back then, and Russell Robinson, when they first joined together to start rebranding and redeveloping this organization. And here we are as a powerful force that's talking about a $1 billion 10-year campaign. And by the end of May, we'll already reach $600 million. So we have this powerful brand raising incredible sums, even more doing really spectacular visionary work in Israel that runs the gamut from housing, quality of life infrastructure. We're now talking about a $300 million campus in Beersheba, a new culinary institute and food tech hub in Kiryat Shimona, and on and on and on, building medical clinics throughout Israel. And people still say, JNF, the tree people, which is a challenge. On the other hand, what's exciting about that is that provides us with new market share opportunities, because we know that people who still see JNF as the tree people, when we get 5 minutes of their attention to share the story about what we're really doing, we know we're going to have a lot of victories. And that's what's really exciting, because in many cases, they just don't know. And on the other hand, it tells us that we need to do a much better job as lay leaders and even the professional staff of telling that story. And how often do we, when we are in a social setting with family, with friends, how often do we with our business associates say, I'm involved with JNF, and let me tell you what we're doing because it really is exciting. How often when we go to a national major donor weekend in Las Vegas, for example, it's coming up, when we get back to the office, a couple of days later, say, I was just in Vegas. What were you doing there? Well, let me tell you about JNF. Or after we have an experience on a mission or in a national conference, and having those conversations with people. This is how JNF is going to grow, because the lay leadership corps, and by the way, we have more than 1,100 lay leaders serving on boards and committees throughout the country. That is a powerful force of people who all represent a network of family, friends, business associates. We used to say back in the day, a Rolodex. People under the age of 40 don't know what that is.
No.
But what's that?
I said they don't.
They don't. They don't. Okay, your contacts.
No, that's not true. I'm under 40. I know what a Rolodex is.
No, we need you.
Representing the generation. But your contacts in Outlook or in Salesforce. I just think that we need to do a much better job of telling the story. And so Cheryl and I, who are very like-minded, I've really enjoyed listening to Cheryl talk about this notion of peer-to-peer. Give me a second. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to pull up a PowerPoint. So bear with me for just one moment. Can everybody see the PowerPoint? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Very good.
Great. So Cheryl Buchholz, I mentioned, got involved with JNF on a JNF mission back in 2008. We met on that mission. She fell in love. She didn't know what she didn't know, but she walked away from the mission saying, I need to get involved. And from that time, you're talking about a person who's really become all in. She's on the New York Board of Directors for JNF. She's a very active member of our McCore team. She's very active in Women for Israel, Present Society, Sapphire Society. She's a member of the Century Council. And she gives JNF 20 hours a week on top of the 80 hours that she's working professionally. Cheryl is very well known in the healthcare world. She's a consultant. She travels around the United States. She lectures all over the United States. And she's become a very good friend and advocate of JNF. And so I want to turn it over to Cheryl, who's going to guide us through a conversation about peer-to-peer fundraising. Just a couple of notes before Cheryl starts. We've muted everybody, but you can unmute, and we do want to make this interactive. So feel free to ask questions and challenge and bring your own stories to this conversation. It'll only enrich this training that we're going to do. So please feel free to unmute to ask a question, and you can mute yourself when you're done. We're hoping to wrap this all up in about 45 minutes. So without further ado, Cheryl, it's all yours.
Thank you. And thanks for your generous introduction. As Rick said, I went on a president's mission with my sister. She thought she'd be nice and take me along as a roommate. And at the end of a week, I said, I just am in love with JNF. And it is so much more than trees, even 11 years ago. And I always say the story that when my daughters were B'nai Mitzvah, I did a double event in 1996. And I was all caught up in what do I do for an invitation. It was my parents who said, do JNF trees. And so somewhere I've told them, and I've taken them to Israel with JNF, we're still looking for the trees from that bat mitzvah, but we know they're there. And it was from the connection, seriously, of going on a mission. And I think that's something that makes it very, very easy for me to talk about peer-to-peer, because JNF encourages and helps us thrive in philanthropy. And the interesting thing about philanthropy, the best philanthropy is not about giving money. It's bringing our skill set and our gifts that made us successful. And that's the incredible thing about JNF. The people who were involved, the lay leaders, and of course the professionals, it just becomes such an exciting place to be and be with and do. And the tangible work that we can see through JNF, you don't get that in a lot of organizations. And so the drive, determination, and really the refusal to kind of think you can't change things. It's very exciting to be part of JNF family and to see things being changed. And I'm giving a shout out because last night I was on the call with the Gaza Task Force, and to see what these people, lay leaders, are spending time and calls and speaking and going all over. Unfortunately, it's heating up again, but that's what this is all about right now. It's being there in the good times. It's helping to enrich Israel, the people, the land, the programs, but also, especially now, it's a challenging time. So you can go to the first slide, Rick. The anatomy of an ask. It's something that you go through your community, through your synagogue, through your work. And obviously, once you have known and seen and participated in what JNF is doing, I think an ask is pretty easy. Obviously, when I see people, I just can't open a conversation by saying, and by the way, but certainly getting pleasantries across and having a conversation, being part of JNF leadership. Again, peer-to-peer, I think all of us should go on at least one mission a year. In a one-year cycle, I made it 3 times to Israel. And I say that because every trip is so different and dynamic. And JNF wants us to be there to make the connection to the land and to be participating. So with that anatomy of an ask, it becomes very easy for me and others to talk about what's going on and some of the things that JNF does that people are not aware of, whether it's go north or go south, and building communities and providing education and making that connection to it. The conversation becomes very proactive and also very positive. And so in the core facts of what are you asking for, it depends honestly on the day, the week, the events going on as you make a connection about Israel and JNF specifically, that how you can engage your friends and others into becoming part of the JNF, world. I mean, it's how we're making a difference. And so with that, when you say show people how they can make a concrete difference or reach a concrete goal, it's crazy right now with the Go North group. We need something like upwards of $12 million. We're going to do Tel Hai University, which is going to be a food incubator. There's going to be a culinary professional school. There's going to be healthcare, but there's also going to be housing. There's going to be jobs. There's going to be education. So I'm not asking friends and telling friends that there's a $12 million goal. I'm talking about and trying to size up, the kind of people, what their interests are, and or it could be down, unfortunately, as I say that, with Gaza heating up a little, or in the middle where we're involved in healthcare and easy sell, special and uniform, low temp. And so deciding what you're going to ask for is kind of making the connection to the person and trying to see how you can help them be part of reaching a goal. And in discussing something that appeals to them, and as a lay leader, I have gone out and spoken to people where I went out thinking I was going to talk about Ali and someone was more interested in housing. And so you need to have some flexibility and knowledge, which is why I say come on the missions. And I really do mean that. The phrase of understanding knows, it's interesting because, again, Israel has such a diversity of needs and a diversity of people and certainly a diversity of politics. I'm trying to really, and all of us should be trying to steer away from the negatives and go to how they can be contributing to the positives and how to get that yes. And to also, the beauty of JNF, and this is something that really makes us outstanding. And look, I didn't wake up just when I went on a JNF trip. I've been involved in charitable undertakings and fundraisings, as have all of us. But I say that is to make sure that people get the message and the impact of what JNF is doing and the diversity of projects, the diversity of these programs, the offerings, is really so enormous that it's hard to find someone who you can't kind of hit a point with a touch point and say, you know, we could really use you in this, and what that means. And so going to the next slide, Rick, he has the control. I've trusted him. Next slide, Rick. People want to do the right thing, and they don't. Oh,
Can you see the slide?
yes, I can now. Thank you. So it's in, people want to do the right thing, and you don't know, and this was a hard one, I think, for a lot of us. How much do you ask for when you're talking about it, you know? And I know that I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm someone who try to knows, you know, the people I'm talking to or whatever, or, you know, speaking with the professionals, if they know I'm going out and going to make a real ask, or in a social situation is what I'm also talking about, making asks, and trying to figure out and consider what's a comfortable gift. I've been pleasantly surprised that people have gone way higher, and I've been okay and accepting of people being within whatever level they're comfortable at. And I think Rick can also share that sometimes getting their foot in the door, their foot in our door, then they can become an ongoing and repeat donor. And
Can I weigh in on that point, Cheryl?
Yes.
Because I think, again, this gets to the power of the notion of peer-to-peer fundraising and the ability you have as a layperson, as a volunteer, to be able to have this conversation with people in a non-threatening way. Again, it is different when a professional fundraiser sometimes is having a conversation with somebody, because they know we're getting paid by the organization to do this. There is a real power of a layperson, a volunteer who's giving their own time to be able, quite frankly, to get away with something that a professional can't. You can't break this. There's nothing you're going to do to break this. And if the worst thing that happens is if you're talking to somebody to please consider a gift of $10,000 or $25,000, the worst thing is that they say, you know what, I just can't do that, right? Or it's great that you think I can give that, I just don't have that. Or I'm not there yet with your organization. You can't break it. And if you go back to this conversation from the last slide about the vision of who we are, if you're talking about the big vision and the excitement of what we're doing, you know what? Go for the gold and really try to stretch them. But you're not going to do anything to harm a relationship simply by asking. And you can, because you're a peer of theirs.
Yes.
Much different than if Rick Krosnick is asking. Sometimes.
No, I totally agree with you. And so, you know, going for the gold, absolutely. Aiming high, and then seeing somewhere where they're comfortable. And also, I'm always optimistic, and I think the big thing is getting them back again or to another event and writing another check. And that's what becomes significant, that it's an entry level maybe, and then let's keep getting them out and more involved. And not everybody's going to be, you know, a leader necessarily, but a repeat donor is very, very significant. And I've had these conversations with Rick. You know, I think it's important to have people who at least are repeat donors and feel who buy into JNF, who buy into the mission, and who buy in to what's needed in Israel. And again, we're talking about Israel. And I'm always very comfortable saying, if we're not going to do it, who is? And in leading, and I will throw this in even having many friends who are not of the Jewish faith, talking to them about programs, it's a wonderful feeling when they're writing checks too, or coming to the breakfast, or coming to a women's event. And I think that's something that's part of this ask, inviting a diversity of people and talking about, look, I'm in healthcare, I'm a nurse, but I will say to everyone, if there wasn't Israel, there wouldn't be cures for so many diseases coming out of Israel. And so it's educating and having the resources available from that end. Forgive me for lecturing.
Carol, can you address, you know, it's one thing when you're making the ask with somebody you know, and you may have an idea of what their giving capacity is, but when you're meeting with someone that you don't know, it's a whole different ballgame. So
well,
how do you approach that to get the amount that you want to ask for?
Okay, so I am one of these lay leaders that I love working with JNF professionals. And so I'm also a proud member of McCore, the Speakers Bureau, and we're always looking for more. But most people thought I was on McCore when I wasn't, because I was doing all these asks anyway. And and you don't have to be on it. I'm just saying, we get a little extra training. So that said, if you are making a plan that you're going out with someone who has some capacity, whether it's 500 or 5,000 or 50,000, you can ask your local professional and work with them. I love working with them and saying, you know what, I'm having dinner with people in my synagogue. I do that call about once every other week to JNF. Can you give me a history? I'm hosting a parlor meeting actually in 2 weeks. For Michal Shiloh is coming in from the north. Now, right now with everything going on in Israel, it's going to be, we're talking north, but north is going to be education, it's going to be jobs, it's going to be housing, it's going to be healthcare, moving people up. And so in putting this together, I did ask, and I worked with the JNF professional in coming up with a list of, I'm inviting 50. I'm very optimistic I'll get 30. And I say that because I wanted to know the history of who's given what and when and how old. And, I wrote personal notes to people and I said, please come for a lovely evening. This is a woman, who's outstanding executive. And I have a pretty good idea of then asking people afterward. Okay. And that's part of doing an ask. Rick, do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, so Barbara, first of all, I think networking is really important. And that is, check in with your local professional. And by the way, I also think that we don't do enough of processing, we used to call it a rating of a prospect, right?
Oh.
At the board level, right? Board meetings also should include, we've got a prospect. Does anybody know?
Yes.
Has anybody heard of? What are your thoughts? I'm going to be meeting with somebody next Tuesday. Don't know a lot of information. And quite frankly, sometimes Google is a wonderful thing as well. The amount of information you can find about people on Google. Just yesterday, I was sitting with a colleague, and we were looking at a prospect who gives us some money, but we just Googled this person and put in this person's name in philanthropy, and we got a whole list of things that this person's name was connected to philanthropically. So it painted a picture for us. There's no foolproof way, but Barbara, sometimes the first ask also sets the bar, right? Because when you make that ask, if you get an immediate yes, you say, oh, maybe I didn't ask for enough. And
that's how I feel sometimes. And that's
to be honest, if you say you're way out of the ballpark here, you just got to take the risk of putting it out there. But I think there's some basic research that we should be doing from the very beginning, even if it's just processing this among your local team or doing a Google search. There's got to be a basis.
And I'm go to the next slide because I think that has some key points. And, Rick and I did this together. Oh, look at those people. Oh, some of my favorite people. So I say that because, look, money is an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. When, and I'm talking as a real person. And in fact, I've done speaking for JNF and everything, and sometimes people say to me, are you a professional? And my proudest part of any JNF ask is when I say, no, I'm a volunteer just like you. I care deeply. I'm spending time and making an effort to help support Jewish National Fund and the land and the people of Israel. So I say that because in that ask sometimes, again, making a slight transition is, I want to talk to you about something. And something that if you can connect to it, and Russell and Rick know I care a lot about Israel and I care about JNF and the diversity of our projects. I have to narrow my lane sometimes. So I Google people, Rick is absolutely right, or if I don't know them and I'm going to be part of an ask somewhere or a big meeting somewhere, to try to find out what's going to hit those people, what's going to get slightly under their skin in a positive way. So that's important. And it's important, again, to be able to say, look, I think it's good to give a number out that is achievable. So when I said earlier about go north and 10 or 12 million, yes, I'm saying that in a general way, but then I'm breaking it down, a little easier for people and saying, look, in the short term, we need $2 million to start a building for healthcare, to have services and things like that. And that is that brings it down, I think, to most people. And wonderfully, there are some people who can say, I will give you 50 of that 100. That's always the pleasant surprise. And Rick, don't you agree with me? Then breaking it down, if you see some discomfort with big numbers, to saying, would you be willing to make a contribution of $5,000? It could be paid out over that year. It could be put on a credit card. I say that frequently because that number represents a chunk that's really going to have a lot of strength and a lot of getting us closer to that goal. Rick?
100%. So, asking somebody to give $100,000, and they may be pushing back, say, I can't give $100,000. And you could say, well, could you do it over 4 years, right? That works. Or when Cheryl was talking about, asking a person, can you be a member of our Sapphire Society or Herzl Society at $5,000? So that's a lot of money. But, you could pay it out throughout the year. And if you make your pledge today, you have until the end of the fiscal year to pay it off. I could even take a credit card. Those are techniques that work. And if you look at what Cheryl put here, this is from, Cheryl's list about making the ask. It's all about packaging. Look at the words and the way you phrase it. And in the previous slide, just going back for a second, that last bullet, it's how you package the conversation.
Yes.
It's one thing to say, I need you to do this. Listen, you may have the kind of a relationship with a person that's so close, the quid pro quo, I do this for you, you're going to do this for me, and you can push them a little bit hard. But in general, if you avoid the words like should, and instead talk about would you consider?
Yes.
Please consider. Is this something you think you might be able to do? The packaging matters, that you can push somebody in a gentle way, but the response will be much softer than if you say, I need you to do X, Y, or Z. And then going back to this list that Cheryl made, the same thing. If you look at this, we need to raise another $100,000. Can you do this? It's like being part of the team.
Right.
Our community is doing this. We've got a goal of getting 40 people in whatever, Denver, Colorado, San Diego, of 10,000. I already have this number. Will you be my next one? Because people want to know that other people are doing it and they can be part of the team. So the packaging matters and how you have the conversation. Think about if you're on the other side of the table and how you would like people to present it to you. You'll push back hard if you feel you're being pushed hard. And you'll soften if you feel that people are just asking you to kind of join the rest of the community.
And I think even when we go on to the next slide too, it's, the phrase is, rallying the troops. It's being comfortable within yourself and your own philanthropy and why you do what you do with JNF. And then kind of sharing that and getting people to be connected to something, and it is personal and it is advocating. And I think that the amazing thing when Rick gave a number of 1,100 lay leaders, it really is a remarkable number, of people within a large organization, but certainly not the largest in the country as far as philanthropy goes, but we'll be there soon. But I say that we are, stepping up and saying, we're going to help build this organization. And again, having just been in Israel on the mega mission, I had all new donors on my track, and we were in Go North. And they were all somewhat, $10,000 level people. Every single one left that trip and is giving more and opening up their homes and it was like such enthusiasm for them seeing what's going on and getting comfortable, and it was interesting because the first day or two, one woman was very tight and closed and not really talking. By the end of the week, she's opening her house, she's making appointments, she's going everywhere for JNF, and then obviously for some of the programs that she got to see. She didn't even get to see all of what JNF does. So it's that connection, it's that interpersonal relationship for a shared kind of success. And the last night at Must, when people were giving reports, I said to her, stand up and give the report for all of us. And she just went on and on so enthusiastically. You remember, Rick, don't you? And I said, you don't need me to say what the success of a trip is. It's really, having a donor really feel the excitement and get into the mission and the purpose of what we're doing that really becomes the success of any organization. And I think JNF certainly, and I keep saying it over because, again, I'm so invested in the organization and the diversity of it and the strength of it and the people, professional and lay people, that, we're all in this together. Rick, you want to unmute yourself and add to that, or go to the next slide, or?
No, let's just continue. I think I'm with you. I'm with you.
So in, using peer-to-peer, that is a phrase out there, and in a lot of professions and things like that, of how do you get people to, in our instance today, talking about becoming a volunteer. And so playing to people's strengths, obviously social media, and whether you're Instagramming or Facebooking or whatever your platform is, it is important to show the positives. And I think that's something that we do have a lot of great people I know who are on here today too. It's showing the good side of what's going on in Israel. And a lot of the good side is, again, I say because JNF is there. That said, hosting parlor meetings, I initially, the first few years, I didn't want to do it. I live in a nice apartment in Brooklyn, but it's like, and now I'm hosting my second parlor meeting in under 3-4 months. And I'm throwing out a big wide net, and I'm serving some snacks and come meet someone from Israel and talk to them. And it's been lovely. And it's also with programs that I'm not necessarily working on a very regular basis, but because I'm there and I feel strongly, and again, I'm not the shining example. There are great people on this line who do a lot more than me. But I say that because it's getting comfortable with how can you connect people to people. And that's also what's happened that I saw in my house. I did the firefighters in my house a few weeks back, and it was really interesting who showed up. And the firefighter was great. I never knew him before. We raised a nice little chunk of change on a Sunday, and people are connecting with each other. They met in my house, and now I know they've established relationships, and they will be coming to the JNF breakfast, and they want to come to the next event. And so that's something. And also within your own social world, I've been a member of a synagogue for many, many years. I've hosted events at my synagogue on behalf of JNF. And so it's just, I asked in the calendar early in the year, can you give me a Friday night that I just want to kind of show off something about JNF? And sometimes I'm not even sure what I want to show off or what partner may be in or something, but I try to block a date that we can do something JNF and also, get the rabbis buy-in and the other thing too. So that's also part of the calendaring and the ongoing education, because again, I think people don't know that JNF is so much more than trees. And the rebranding and the growth that it's experienced in the last 20 years is just absolutely phenomenal. And we want people to kind of, people want to be with winners. People, and I know that sounds a little harsh, but you want to be part of that energy, part of that positivity. And
Cheryl, may I say something?
Sure.
Cheryl, this is Julia Sherry, also from Colorado. I think that you hit on something that's really important for us as JNF to understand. I always was intimidated by the concept of opening up my house to people. And last year we needed, at the last minute, a home for Women for Israel. And reluctantly I said, sure, I'll do it. Well, it was such a piece of cake. I was so astonished
Thank you.
how easy it was that this year they also needed someone at the last minute. I was moving back from Arizona, and 5 days later I had it in my house. I didn't even tell my husband. I just knew that it's easy. And I think that the idea of having a parlor meeting is daunting to most people until they do it. And I think that that's one of the things that JNF, we should train ourselves. We should go out and be able to say to my girlfriend, Risa, if you open up your home, all I'm asking you to do is X, Y, and Z, maybe invite 5 people, whatever, that could be X, or we will provide the chairs. So don't worry about if you have enough things. And all we want at a parlor meeting is a platter of fruit and a platter of cookies.
You're
So
absolutely
you
right.
make it so manageable. We've never done that, and nobody in Denver does that. I think we need to make a template to make it so easy that it's a really manageable ask to open up your home, and then discover this feels fabulous.
Well,
This is-
I agree with you. And my professionals, again, in New York, that I'm doing one so close, to the last one. And as I said, they're helping me in, giving me the invitation, and I'm forwarding them with a personal note and making sure there's a platter of fruit and a pot of coffee, and that's it. And it's a nice way for people to network, and they're networking on behalf of JNF, and they're networking on a specific project, if that's what you're doing, but it becomes informal. And I personally, thank you so much for saying it, because I'm doing it again, and I will do it again and again.
I want to weigh in on that point, Julia, because it is so important. Look, this is sales, right? We're selling a concept of vision. We're not selling a phone or a ballpoint pen. We're selling the vision of participating in the land and the redemption of the state of Israel. And so in sales, one of the most important things is develop pre-qualified leads, right? I can't do anything with a list of 100,000 that I'm just making blind phone calls to. What parlor meetings do, in a non-threatening way, brings people into a room to hear the story. And then what do? We're meeting people, we're getting to know them, and we're turning that into a coffee the following week to spend one-on-one time to see if they want to get more engaged. It's a process that works every single time. And the other thing I want to say is we have a wonderful tool at JNF. We are blessed with this network of partners from Israel. We always have people in the States from Israel who will help tell the story. And we're always looking for opportunities to get them in front of people, whether it's in a parlor meeting in your home, or you do a lunch and learn at your office around a conference table, or you say to your professional, I can bring together 2 or 3 friends at a Starbucks.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. And what an easier way for you to get those opportunities to say to a friend or colleagues, this really interesting person is in town from Israel. I think you'll really connect with him or her. You want to get together for a coffee, or you want to have lunch. It's a wonderful gift and tool that we have to help make those connections. I don't think that we're using them enough. And the last thing I'll say is that piece about ongoing education. You've got to be educated. JNF is a big organization, and we're doing 1,000 amazing things in Israel. You're not expected to know all of them, okay? But every Friday, you're getting a weekly campaign update. And if you just take the minute to click on that and scroll through, every one of those campaign updates not only has a snapshot of what the campaign is doing, but it's got project updates, it's got partner updates. You get the Russell Robinson report on a quarterly basis. You get the Biyachad 3 times a year. You get the e-blasts that are highlighting current events, projects, and programs. You have to read all of it, but you should, as a layperson, be very well grounded in what we're doing, so you have the stories and the talking points, so you can have these conversations to educate the public beyond we're just trees.
If I can piggyback on that for a second, when we started Women for Israel in Denver, our monthly programs, we started bringing in these partners. We'd find out who was coming or ask certain ones. But not only do we have them on our monthly women's program, we try to utilize their time while they're here, either it's taking them to somebody's office or breakfast, futures to getting them involved in meeting with them. So there's so many different ways to utilize our partners and McCore members. We're trying to use McCore members more also.
And, the thing is, what's exciting about it is that I think any of the 1,100 lay leaders, the areas of JNF that you're comfortable in, you can easily speak about that and have some coffee clutches and get together. And I know it sounds bizarre because, believe me, I was not, I'm busy, I'm this, I'm that. It really becomes easy. And what's interesting, through my synagogue, I did a dinner with Tehran years ago. My sister did one on fire years ago. So we always had something JNF-y, on a regular basis, once a year, because, whatever. And then another member of the synagogue, I don't know who's on here today, so I'll be cautious. There was a couple who have been coming. They didn't do much. And suddenly in the past year, it's a fire truck. It's a commitment for, dozens and dozens of things. And certainly it was that building and at the right time and the right issues and the right concerns and obviously the right capacity that when I heard about that, I said, wow, still waters ran very, very deep. But I do like to say that it was several of us who would talk to them at different points about JNF and still very, very quiet. They don't want it all known. But that to me was so exciting. I took great joy in knowing that they didn't. They didn't call me and tell me, they didn't, I'm not in that. But just knowing that education, that networking, that those touch points from different people, that's what it is of us living within our community and or going and visiting other communities too. I always tell the story, I went to Montana and I called the local rabbi and I said, in a very small community, but I found her, and I brought her a lot of information about Jewish National Fund, and sadly she didn't know about it, and even about MUS and a whole bunch of things, and I'm keeping in touch with her. And so again, at least she's bringing it to her congregation, to talk about what's going on. And I see that as part of our education and part of our connections to each other and to Israel. And the thing,
so how do you ask, and two questions for you, Cheryl and Rick. If I invite someone for a parlor meeting, for instance, we're having Michal come in a few weeks to us, and I want to invite some people to my house. What if they say, well, are you going to solicit me? What is the answer? If we are, we should be upfront. And if we're not necessarily, then I could say, no, the point of this is we have someone exciting representing what's going on in the North. And I'd just love you to come see it.
I'm saying I want to educate you and give you an opportunity. And yes, there will be envelopes. It's your choice to take it. I do not do a hard sell in my house. Okay. And I don't know if Rick agrees with that or not, but even, I have Michal coming too. I love her. And actually, one of the little things I'm doing is because I buy the spices every time I'm there, I got little jars. I'm giving everybody a spice from Israel to take home from the North.
Oh,
but
nice.
I say that, I'm doing my little tags this week. But I say that because, look, they know that there's it's not just totally come and learn, but I'm not a hard sell. I'm more of a networker and a connector, and I'm not uncomfortable saying that. And I hope that meeting with her or anyone, look, when I did the fire guys, I had no expectation. And in his conversation, he briefly mentioned about those thermo lamps that they can find people, with this technology. And someone in the room who I didn't have high expectation for said, how much does it cost? And within 1 minute, we purchased one of those. And I just and then they kept giving more and more afterward. So the education and the connection and the conversation, and then also sending a little note. I'm trying to do more handwriting. I'm not great. I have great handwriting, but I'm sending an email thanking them for showing up. And I appreciate you hearing about it and hope you'll join me at another event. And that's what I'm really trying to do.
There are two different kinds of parlor meetings, and you have to be upfront with people. One type of parlor meeting is a minimum gift parlor meeting. So let's say, for example, strategically, your community decides that you want to have a parlor meeting inviting anybody who made a gift of $5,000 or more, right? You want to bring all your major donors together because you've got a special speaker, or in some communities they'll do an event where the minimum gift to attend for the 2019 annual campaign is $1,000. Well, you're articulating that up front in the invitation. This is open to people, make a gift. So that's honest. The other kind of parlor meeting is you're bringing in prospects like you guys are describing, and there are pledge cards, but there's no minimum gift to attend. And as Cheryl said, in that case, if someone asks the question, yeah, we're going to have pledge cards. If you get excited, this turns you on, it'd be great if you make a gift. And if not, we can follow up with you. But nonetheless, in that case, it's all about getting people excited and then following up. And I will say that we're often very good about getting people into the room. What we need to do a much better job of is that second step, that after that friend raiser, call it parlor meeting, that we are following up with people. What did you think? Was this interesting? Do you want to get together for a cup of coffee and learn more about JNF? If we're going to do that kind of parlor meeting, which we should, we just also have to make sure that we do the step 2, and that is to try to get people more deeply engaged. But both kinds of parlor meetings are important, and that's a strategic conversation for you and your professional board to decide to do.
Yes.
Because we should be doing both kinds of those parlor meetings in the local community. We tend to do a lot of the friend raiser with the passive pledge card. We're not doing enough to invest in people who are already investing in us and bringing people together who are already giving us, whether it be a major gift or even at the general campaign $1,000 level, bringing them to a room to hear from our folks. We need to be doing both kinds, but in either case, the step 2 follow-up is crucial.
And I agree with you. And here's where Rick, said earlier about sales and professionalism and things like that. I want to bring people in. I want to educate them. And yes, I want to thank them and get their money. So I haven't done the minimum gift kind of thing because I want to get as many, me personally, peer to peer. And, I've said this to Rick, so he knows it. I want to get as many people positively educated about really the magic and the power and the success of JNF. That's my personal mission. And so that's my style. And it works for me. And as I said, I feel as happy having 20 people in my home as I do as raising $20,000. Different kind of things, but of that 20, I know I'll get that money eventually. And Rick, I hope you respect that.
Cheryl, can I add one?
Oh gosh, Betsy Fisher. Oh, now you want to talk about fundraising. Let's switch that camera over to Betsy.
I just want to mention one thing to Julie also, and this is quoting Helene Blumenfeld, who is or was our Wi-Fi chairperson here.
Yes.
She loves to say, Julie, this is a great idea. Something like, the event is free and we'd love for you to hear this exciting speaker. And we have Michal from the North, but don't forget to bring your checkbook because you will have the opportunity to make a donation. It's free, please come, but just remember to check it because you may want to.
Okay, you're the cherry.
Sorry?
I said, that's a good cherry on the cake.
Yeah, I love that. So just don't forget your checkbook. You don't have to take it out, but have it on you just in case.
And Betsy is an extraordinary fundraiser. And I really, hold her in the highest rankings of the universe. Because no, I do, that, but that's,
Thank you. I love you too.
I have another
because
question.
we met on a mission at JNF years ago.
Yeah, I fell in love with Betsy too. I got to admit it.
and the truth is though now, and I gave you the shout out, Betsy, earlier about the Gaza Task Force. She ran an unbelievable meeting last evening.
Thank you.
And I say that because we're going to raise money for Gaza, and not just saying the bombs are blasting, but it's about the resilience center and the positivity of that. It's about the playground. It's about, the community bomb shelters. And so, again, there's so much going on, and the style and the energy and the commitment is what, for me today, that was about. Sharing that, love of Israel and love of helping Israel through a JNF kind of thing. And Rick, you can go to kind of the last one and let's open up more questions or whatever, encouraging. Nope, we're on to the last slide. Do you have a last slide? The personal contact, and, the youth is also our leadership. And then let's get some comments from other people. But I also want to say that one of the things I've said to people is when you see that beautiful pond somewhere out there, and the water's very still, and you throw in that rock to see what energy it will create and how far it will go, I kind of say that about us as JNF volunteers. We're looking out there and how do we create that energy and see how far we can go. And again, with the diversity of what JNF does, it's an easy sell. It's and being a volunteer is easy through JNF, as you can see from all of us talking. So thank you for the opportunity of sharing this today. Rick?
Before we close it up, we've got a few minutes if anybody has any questions, conversation. I see Julia raising her hand.
Forgive me for being such a hog, but I have a really critical question, and this is my dilemma. I want to start asking people, but some of the people that I'm going to be asking already have, just like I have my heart in JNF, and if I want to give money, I want it to get to JNF. That's really, I'm not interested in a lot of other organizations. But I want to appeal to people who aren't interested in JNF. They have their Jewish Family Services, or they have their Jewish Colorado, or something. Please, I need advice on how to appeal to these people who, like me, think that they're one organization person, and yet I want them to accept JNF as their second one. I need advice.
Anybody want to share before Cheryl and Rick weigh in on this?
Look, you know what? I'm going to weigh in and say that there are so many worthy organizations. Let's be honest right now. And regardless of your political stream or whatever, there's worthy stuff here, and we're talking about Israel. And so I try to work it in as far as who that person is and what may appeal to them and or what's going on. And again, I feel that moral responsibility of saying, you know, this is part of our heritage of who we are. And I'm not getting into good, bad, or indifferent politics about it, but Israel and the people, and they need us. You know, I mean, I'm not, you know, it's just fundamental. And some of the other, or I always say the other programs people are involved in are worthy and necessary, but we need you too. So can you consider, you know, and let me see it, taste it, feel it, hear it. And that's where the parlor meetings and the friendship comes in.
I think that's a very important point. First of all, you have to acknowledge the importance of what they're doing in their philanthropy, because in our business, we have a phrase that people who give, and people who don't. And it's very hard to get a person who's not philanthropic in a basic way to become philanthropic. So we have to acknowledge if a person is a philanthropic person and they're doing in the community, it's a wonderful thing, and acknowledge that. And then say, let me share something else that might interest you, and set that big vision. And it comes back to the point of, are you well educated about JNF and all the great stuff that we're doing? And sharing with them how they can make a difference, even today, that they could be builders in the land of Israel and make a specific difference. Cheryl had that one slide. You're not always going to get a yes. Sometimes you're going to get a no. But if you're focused on the personal contact and think about this as a marathon and not a sprint,
yes,
it's about education and engagement, right? And you may not get a no, you may not get a yes today. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a yes tomorrow. It's a constant opportunity to engage and to participate. But if a person is a giver and they're philanthropically inclined and they have an interest in Israel, and you can share this big vision, we're going to win a lot of them, not all of them. And I'll say another thing, and for those of you who have heard me do a lot of training, I know that there are people who are fundamentally uncomfortable asking for money.
Yes.
The power of lay leadership is having the conversation. If you are really concerned, whether specifically about an individual or generally speaking about asking somebody to give money, if you're willing to engage in the conversation and share your enthusiasm with JNF and teach them, we've got Cheryl Buchholz who will ask for money. We got Betsy Fisher, Barbara Burry, on and on and on. Rick Krosnick, this amazing McCore team, all of these partners in your local professional team. Set up an opportunity to introduce somebody to a contact of yours. 90% of this game is just the personal contact and sharing of a story and the enthusiasm that you share. I'm telling you, if you guys will do the 90%, we're going to get a lot of wins, because what you are in this peer-to-peer concept, you are leaders. And people want to follow. People want to follow enthusiasm. People want to follow your charisma and your passion, and you'll have a lot of victories.
And again, it's you're saying it perfectly, and I do want to say it's also the humanization of what JNF does. And again, we're not talking about the big, stuff sometimes that people get turned off to or onto or want to make a comment. Bringing it down, and again, I'm Betsy and Phyllis's and a whole bunch of people that I didn't know 10 and 11 years ago, and I consider them important parts of my lives because we've all made that connection to what those projects are all about. And leadership is part of philanthropy. And so, what Rick was saying is very true, but I think also not making it a sob story, but making it a real story of what's needed and what we're able to accomplish. And that's something that, is remarkable. And I think that that's the story that still needs to get out, and it needs us to get it out. Not, the professional, it's us saying why we're involved and what we care about too.
And many times it's the lay leaders that have the relationships with people that can open the door. And if they're not particularly comfortable with making an ask, but opening the door about JNF, yep, and introducing another lay leader or one of the professionals to go with them.
Yes.
And continue the conversation.
And I think, look, I'm someone who, I've said it loud and clear, I think we have an extraordinary professional staff all over the country. And so I know little Anna is sitting there, I call her little Anna, sweet Anna in New Jersey. She has been a big help to me where I work in my work community area. And I have, the New York team is unbelievable. And then when I've gone down to Florida and worked with them and a new Women for Israel group, remarkable. So I think we have, great resources. And as Betsy knows too, they help us finish the story. I'm a connector. I'm opening a door. I'm just like everybody else. And I really want to say that. And the package of the professionals with us, I think really makes the organization just extraordinary and one of a kind and successful.
So we're at the 1 hour mark. And I think to wrap it up, first of all, Cheryl,
Rick,
thank you so much for your Bob.
Rick, yeah, just, one thing that I found easier because it's such an easy product to sell is just a tweak in phraseology. I don't ask people for donations. I ask them for investments. And we're actually looking to change our major donor to major investors.
That's great.
Because it's really investing in the future. You're not asking for a donation. You're really asking for an investment.
Beautifully put.
Fabulous. I'm stealing it.
Beautifully put. Actually, that actually is a softball for the close. So first of all, Cheryl, thank you so much for your leadership. I applaud you. And I applaud everybody on this call because, look, it's not lost on me as a professional, the amount of time and energy that all of you give to our organization. JNF's strength comes from our lay leadership. And so I thank all of you, and Cheryl, I certainly thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
To sum it up and to follow up on Bob's point, Marcy Needle sent me a private message through Zoom to mention the why, the concept of why. There's a wonderful consultant lecturer, Simon Sinek, and he's got some great YouTube videos, and he does TED Talks and things, and we've used some of his teachings in some of our training, and he talks about how organizations, the three golden circles he calls them. It's the what, the how, and the why, right? The what is, JNF, and that we're working in Israel to build the land. The how is all the stuff that we do, our partnerships, our fundraising, the marketing. He says that if you really want to differentiate yourself, you got to be able to discuss the why. And the why is, why do you exist, right? If you can't discuss and you can't put into words the why of your existence, then maybe you shouldn't. And so, Bob, when you're talking about JNF, it's not just a donation, you're making an investment. We can articulate from 30,000 feet up that first of all, Jewish National Fund, historically, we repurchased the land that became the state of Israel. So there is no state of Israel without Jewish National Fund. And today, the work that we are doing is building the land for next generations. And we talk about Go North or Blueprint Negev. We're talking about building the quality of life that all Israelis can enjoy so we can have the next 70 years. So truly, when people are giving $1 to JNF, it is a specific investment in building the land of Israel for future generations of Jews. And that is something that is unique to Jewish National Fund. And Julia, when you're talking to people back home about why they should give to JNF, because they're already doing some wonderful stuff back home, that is a message that no other organization can share. It's wholly unique to Jewish National Fund USA. We should be very, very proud of the work that we're doing, and we should feel the strength and confidence to share that with people because you can inspire people. And the final thought is just go out and do. You're not going to win, as Cheryl says, you're not going to win every time, but if you share this powerful message, you're going to win some of the time, and that's good enough for us. So thank you very much. Cheryl, any closing?
No, thank everyone here because, I'm taking notes as people are throwing out stuff too. So thank you. And as I always say, thank you for the opportunity of sharing my investment in Israel and in JNF. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you all. And Gary, you can end the recording.